Hey guys, tonight we descend into a place you've probably never imagined falling asleep, an ancient Persian salt mine. Don't worry, it's not too claustrophobic. Just a few dozen meters underground, no fresh air, and a ceiling made of stone that sometimes sighs. You'll be fine. The torchlight flickers as you step into the mouth of the tunnel. The floor crunches underfoot, not with gravel, but with fine salt crystals, brittle and sharp like crushed glass. The walls glitter faintly, coated with layers of white that catch the light like a frozen waterfall. If it weren't for the sweat already collecting on your back, you might mistake it for ice. You reach out to touch one. It's cold. It flakes apart under your fingers, and it stings just a little where it finds the tiniest nick in your skin. Welcome to ancient Persia's salt industry. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your local time and location in the comments. It's oddly fun to see how many people fall asleep to stories about underground horror at 3:12 a.m. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in the Zanjan region. 200-300 years ago, the Achaemenid Empire still looms large, its stone roads and postal riders keeping the corners of a continent stitched together. But out here, past the royal highways and grand capitals, there's another kind of empire, one that grows under your boots, crystalline and quiet. Salt. Not the fancy stuff you sprinkle on fries, not even the coarse gray kind that sits in a carved wooden bowl at expensive restaurants. This is raw salt, ancient, unrefined, and dangerous in ways nobody fully understood yet. It's also essential. Salt preserves meat. Salt prevents rot. Salt lets armies travel. And salt means power. You trudge further down the tunnel. The air thickens, not with smoke or dust, but something else. Something dry. So dry it seems to pull the moisture out of your lungs with every breath. You swallow, and it feels like chalk scraping your throat. The miners here aren't working for coins. Some are enslaved captives from wars, prisoners paying off debts with bone and blood. Others are free men, poor and desperate, hoping a few years in the tunnels will feed their families. And then there are those who were just unlucky, because the mine always needs bodies, and it's greedy. Historians still debate how extensive these operations really were, whether they were state-run industries or local death traps. But we do know that Cherabad mine in northwestern Iran was active during both the Achaemenid and later Sasanian periods, and we know what it left behind. Mummies, not wrapped in linen, not buried with gold, just bodies, limbs curled, skin-stiff mustaches still intact, preserved perfectly by the salt. They didn't mean to become artifacts. They just never came back out. You pause. You hear something, maybe a drip, maybe a cough, maybe just your own heartbeat. Salt doesn't rot you, it keeps you, but not gently. Look up. You see the ceiling. Notice how it bulges slightly. That's not good. It means the rock is shifting, and salt mines, unlike those for gold or copper, are especially unstable. Salt flows under pressure. It moves, not like lava, more like cold honey, slowly, relentlessly. So the tunnels you walk through today might not be here tomorrow. That's why the walls are propped with timbers, old ones, dry ones. Each creaks when you brush against it. One is cracked, and you know what cracked timber means. You move faster now. Further in the temperature drops just a little, enough to make your sweat chill on your neck. The miners keep close together, not because of fear, though that too, but because the salt makes sound behave strangely. Echoes bend, footsteps seem to follow when no one's behind you. Some say the mines remember, that each body left behind still breathes in the walls. That's just folklore, of course. Probably. Still, you keep moving. There's no natural light here. Just torch flames and darkness so thick it feels like velvet soaked in oil. You pass niches carved into the walls where miners once stored tools, water skins, and sometimes, offerings, coins, small charms, little bone figures. For protection, maybe. Or maybe they were bribes. Because salt doesn't play fair. One wrong swing of the pickaxe and the ceiling comes down. One bad breath and your lungs fill with invisible needles. One misstep into a pocket of unstable rock and you're gone. But still, they kept coming. Because salt was worth more than gold in the right season. And because when an empire runs on salted meat and preserved olives, someone has to go down into the earth and cut it loose. Tonight that someone is you. The shift begins long before the sun rises above the Zagros Mountains. Of course, down here, sunrise is more of a rumor than a reality. There are no windows, no roosters, just the shuffling of boots and the crackle of pitchy torches. The mine wakes like an old animal, reluctant, aching, and already hungry. You're handed a tool, a blunt wedge-like pick made from iron. It's been used before. The handle is polished smooth by dozens of tired hands, and it smells faintly of smoke, sweat, and something metallic, possibly blood, possibly imagination. You accept it, without a word. There's a rhythm to the work. Not fast, not efficient, just endless. Raise, swing, chip, breathe, repeat. The salt wall in front of you doesn't give easily. It resists like brittle bone. You strike, and thin white flakes fall away like dandruff from a god's scalp. The sound isn't sharp. It's dull, like tapping wood through cloth. There's no satisfying clang, no clear sign of progress, just slow attrition. Just erosion, and you keep going. You blink salt out of your eyes. Your lips are already cracked. No one talks much. Conversation in a salt mine costs moisture, and nobody here has any to spare. The man beside you might be a farmer's son. The one next to him wears a broken gold earring, stolen maybe, or maybe a memory from another life. A better one. You'll never know. Down here, pasts dissolve faster than salt in soup. Historians still debate whether these early Persian salt mines were directly managed by imperial forces or subcontracted through local governors and landowners. What's clear is that someone always profited, and that person was almost never holding a pick. You scrape at a glittering vein of mineral. It sparkles like sugar, but it's sharp to the touch, coarse, biting. Every strike sprays white dust into the air. You breathe it in. You shouldn't. Salt dust settles in the lungs. It scars them layer by layer, like sandpaper, run over the same spot again and again. The result is something like slow drowning in air. But you breathe anyway, because the mine is not a place of choices. It's a place of repetitions. Raise, swing, chip, breathe, repeat. Sometimes someone coughs, a long dry cough, as if their lungs are full of fabric. You hear it once, twice, and then silence. Maybe they stopped. Maybe they didn't. The overseers walked the tunnels with sandals wrapped in cloth, not to keep their feet warm, but to keep their steps quiet. A loud step can trigger a collapse, or so they say. Others say it's just how they like it appearing behind you, like ghosts with clipboards and whips. They don't strike you, not unless you stop. But they watch, always. Sometimes you catch a flicker of torchlight that isn't yours, a shadow in motion. Then, nothing. Just the steady hiss of your own breath and the rattle of salt shards tumbling into baskets. Those baskets are made from woven reeds and leather straps. They creak under the weight of crystal. You help fill one, then another, and you start to wonder how much of your own body will end up in one of these someday. You've heard stories of men going missing, of boots found beside cave-ins with no feet inside, of hair caught in rock seams. The salt doesn't eat you, it doesn't rot you. It holds you tight and cold, like a grave that wants to remember. Some of the oldest human remains ever found in salt, so-called salt men, came from these very mines. Their beards were still intact, their boots still laced. One even had his intestines preserved like a warning nobody asked for. And when archaeologists pulled him from the earth, he looked surprised. You keep your head down, you raise your pick, you swing, the salt groans, and for a moment, just one, you wonder if it's breathing too. A noise echoes behind you, not footsteps, not tools, something else. You don't turn, because down here you learn quickly some things echo, even when there's nothing left to make the sound. And some tunnels remember too much. Raise, swing, chip, breathe, repeat. You duck your head. The tunnel narrows. The ceiling droops so low that your back starts to ache from the stoop, and your neck strains from keeping your torch up and your spine down. Somewhere ahead, someone mutters a prayer in Old Persian. You don't catch the words, just the rhythm. It sounds like knocking. This is Cherabad. The name means brine city. Not a real city, of course, just a mine. But after enough time down here, it feels like a city of its own, with alleys and caverns, whispers and rules and corners, where sunlight is a distant myth. You step into one of the deeper chambers now. It's broader, more open, the walls smoothed out by decades, maybe centuries, of scraping hands and blades. White pillars rise like teeth from the floor, holding up the weight of Persia. The salt sparkles more here, catching the light in opalescent bursts. It should be beautiful, but it isn't. Because here, the silence is different. It's older. The air doesn't move. Your torch barely flickers. Every footstep you make sounds like it's being swallowed by the stone itself. A cool draft kisses your cheek, but there's no breeze, just cold. Something happened in this chamber. You don't know what. Historians still argue over the exact timeline. Some believe Cherabad's lower levels were sealed by accident after a collapse. Others argue they were deliberately abandoned, maybe after a spiritual event or a curse. What we know is this: a number of mummified bodies were found here. Men, likely workers, their faces twisted, their mouths open, and all of them frozen in salt, perfectly preserved like raisins in dry bread. They weren't buried. They were caught. You kneel beside one. He lies on his side as if sleeping, except his eyes are open, empty and white. You want to look away, but you can't. His clothes are still there too, a woolen tunic stiffened into permanence. His belt still fastened, a leather pouch at his side. It once held coins, or dates, or prayers. Now it holds dust. You step back, careful not to disturb the salt crust around his boots. The wrong vibration could undo centuries of preservation, and salt is jealous about its secrets. The men around you don't speak. They all see him. They all know that could have been any of them, any of you. Because the mind doesn't take just the weak or the slow. It takes the unlucky. You walk on deeper into the white dark. The walls start to change. More jagged now, less worked. You've entered a stretch that wasn't finished, or maybe was too dangerous to finish. Here, salt blooms in delicate veins like frost on window panes. You reach out to touch one, and it breaks under your finger like spun sugar. But your finger bleeds. It doesn't take much. Salt doesn't cut clean. It shreds. It tears. It's thousands of tiny blades masquerading as glitter. You wrap your hand in cloth. You hope it'll be enough. Then you hear it again. A crack. Soft. Sharp. From above. You freeze. Not because of what it might be, but because you already know what it is. The ceiling here, it shifts. Salt isn't stone. It creeps. It bends. Given enough time, it flows like toothpaste, squeezed from a planet-sized tube, a centimeter a year, maybe more depending on heat-weight pressure. The Achaemenids didn't know that, of course, but they knew something was wrong. They built supports. They carved fast. And they left fast, too, when they could. Raise, swing, chip, breathe, repeat. Even here, even now, the chamber feels tighter. You didn't notice it before, but it's obvious now. The ceiling has dropped by inches over the years. You can see the scrape marks from past heads along the upper walls. You add your own, and suddenly the tunnel feels more like a mouth, one about to close. You pick up the pace. There's a fork ahead, left wide and low, right steep and narrow. Neither looks inviting. You hesitate. Then you spotted a smear of red on the right-hand wall, faded but still there. It looks like a handprint, not painted, pressed. Someone tried to climb out once. You don't know if they did. You turn left. Behind you, the air shifts. A pebble falls, and you start to wonder how many chambers like this are sealed forever behind forgotten walls. How many stories, how many bodies, how many screams layered in salt like prehistoric jam. Salt doesn't rot. Salt keeps. But salt also hides. And you are deeper now than you've ever been. The tunnel opens again, but not in relief. You emerge into a shaft where the air feels heavier, as if each breath has to squeeze its way through syrup. The salt here is darker, tinged with streaks of something yellowish-brown. It smells faintly like dried meat, like something once alive that no longer cares to be remembered. Your pick feels heavier. Maybe your arms are just tired. Maybe the mine is tugging back. You're shown where to work next, an alcove carved by others, half finished with jagged walls and a floor slick with brine. You step carefully. The ground crunches underfoot, a mix of salt shards and something softer. You don't want to think about what that might be. There's no ceremony, no speech, no blessing. You just start, raise, swing, chip, breathe, repeat. The wall resists like bone. Not metaphorically this time, it feels like bone. Dense, knotted, alive with the memory of pressure. Your pick bounces off it once, twice, then catches a seam. A small chunk flakes off. It's warm, which doesn't make sense. The tunnel should be cold, but here the air pulses gently, like breath trapped in rock. You wonder if this section is closer to the earth's veins, or if the salt remembers the blood it used to contain. The brine trickles down the wall like sweat or tears. You try not to stare at it too long. The man beside you coughs again. It's a deep rattling sound that ends in silence. You don't look at him. If he sits down, he might not get up. And if he doesn't get up, the overseers will drag him. If they don't, the salt will. That's the rule. Nobody leaves early, unless they leave forever. One of the miners, an older man with white crusts around his eyes, mutters something about the bones. You glance down. At first you think it's just salt lumps, but then you see it clearly. A phalange, a human finger bone snapped at the knuckle, wedged between two rocks like a mislaid tool. It's not fresh, but it isn't dusty either. More bones lie nearby, a cracked scapula, the curve of a rib. One of them has teeth marks. Not human, No one speaks of it, but they all see it. You keep working. Raise, swing, chip, breathe, repeat. There are no lights here, except what you carry. Your torch casts long, jagged shadows on the wall, and one of them moves without your permission. You blink. Nothing there. Just your mind, maybe. Salt does that. There are tales, half-jokes, half-warnings, that the deeper tunnels have echoes of those who stayed too long. Not ghosts exactly, just impressions. The sound of footsteps after yours. The taste of someone else's sweat in your mouth. Whispers in Old Persian that you've never learned, but still understand. Historians still argue over whether these stories were superstition, hallucination, or a collective coping mechanism for trauma. But one thing is agreed upon: once a miner reported hearing voices, they rarely lasted the week. You raise your pick again, and that's when the wall groans, a long, low sound, like wood warping, but deeper, like the ground itself, shifting weight. Everyone stops, even the cougher. You don't move, you barely breathe. You listen, crack, pop, silence. Then a single grain of salt falls. Then another. Then 50. You throw yourself flat. The ceiling doesn't collapse, not fully. Just a portion. A heavy slab comes loose and shatters on the floor where someone was standing a moment ago. Someone who now isn't. You lift your head. There's no scream. Just a leg. Just a boot. Just a splash of salt that smells faintly like iron and regret. And then the overseers are there, quiet, efficient cloth over their mouths and a practiced way of stepping over bodies without looking at them. They don't shout. They don't pause. They just whisper, "Keep going." Because if the work stops, the salt wins. You pick up your tool. Your hands are shaking. Your eyes sting not from grief, but from salt. And still the rhythm calls you back. Raise, swing, chip, breathe, repeat. Eventually, someone hands you a water skin. Not to drink, though. Drinking down here is rationed more strictly than air. You're expected to use it for rinsing your eyes or moistening a cloth. Most people don't. Moisture evaporates too fast to feel like relief, and the salt eats linen as eagerly as it eats skin. You wipe your face anyway. The rag comes away white. Your eyelashes crunch when you blink. Your lips are already splitting at the corners. No one looks fresh in the salt mines. But you are starting to look like you belong here, which is worse. Your pick hand is blistered, your shoulders sore. You feel your body adjusting to the rhythm, not stronger, just resigned. This isn't labor anymore. It's atmosphere, a tide, and you're just flotsam in it. You move deeper still. This tunnel's different. It's not a workspace. It's a passage. Sloped downward, tighter walled, strangely smooth. You run your fingers along the side and feel deliberate tooling chisels, not picks. This wasn't dug for mining. It was built, and not recently. The salt here is darker, almost gray. You breathe in and immediately regret it. The air smells of copper, and old rot. You pass carvings on the wall, not grand inscriptions, just etchings, lines, dots, scratch marks. One pattern repeats 3 short lines crossed by 1 long slash. A tally, a name, a warning. Historians still debate the meaning of these symbols. Some suggest they were early counting systems for tunnel lengths. Others think they marked places where accidents happened. A few believe they were prayers, short, sharp, and quietly desperate. You keep walking. Then you see it. A door. A real one. Wood somehow unrotted, sealed into a frame of carved salt blocks. It's only about shoulder height, with no handle. Just a hole where a peg might have been. You crouch instinctively and press your palm to it. It's warm. Again, wrong. Everything else down here is bone cold. But this door hums faintly, like it's holding something in, or back. The older miner, the one with the crusted eyes, catches up to you. He stares at the door, then slowly traces a symbol in the air, an old Zoroastrian sign for protection, or maybe binding. He doesn't speak. He just turns and walks away. You should too. But you don't. You kneel, not out of reverence, but because your knees buckle. You're tired, dehydrated. Your thoughts are swimming. You think you hear something from behind the wood. Not a sound exactly. More like pressure, a suggestion, then a thud, soft, dull, like something shifting its weight behind centuries of silence. You stand, and you back away. There's a reason some tunnels aren't mapped, a reason some doors are left shut, even when their hinges rot away. You return to the others, but you don't speak of it. Salt keeps secrets, but it also listens. Back at the main shaft, the men are lifting bodies. The one who got crushed earlier, it wasn't quick after all. His arm is missing, clean gone. Not crushed, not mangled, just missing. They say a cave-in took it, or maybe it never was there. Maybe you imagined the whole thing. You nod, because that's safer than asking. You help carry what's left to the pit. There's no grave. Just a corner of the mine where the salt dips low and gathers dust. They lay him down without ceremony, without marking. The salt will do the remembering. It always does. You wonder as you lift his legs whether you'll end up in the same place. You wonder if the mine already knows your name. Raise, swing, chip, breathe, repeat. Night doesn't exist down here. Neither does day. You only know time has passed when the overseers tell you it has. Their torches burn lower. Their voices grow raspier. And someone somewhere starts humming an old song off-key but steady. You pause. Not to rest. Rest isn't given. It's stolen. But to listen. The melody is ancient, older than the empire. It winds through the tunnels like smoke, slipping into the cracks. You don't know the words, but you know the meaning. Keep going. Always keep going. You eat from a shared pouch. The food is salt-dried because of course it is. A strip of meat so tough it might have once been leather. A pinch of barley. And a date, if you're lucky. You are not lucky today. The salt dries out your throat as you chew, and your tongue feels like parchment. You sip one drop of brine-filtered water, knowing it won't help, knowing it has to last. The tunnel shifts again, not physically, psychologically. The walls close in tighter, even if the space remains the same. Your torch flickers in the stale air, throwing shadows that don't match your movements. You feel watched, not by people, not by animals, by the mine itself. There's a theory less academic, more whispered, that salt remembers pain, that it holds echoes of suffering like clay holds fingerprints, that when you mine salt, you mine grief. You don't want to believe that, but you do. Because the deeper you go, the more you feel it, like a hand resting lightly on your shoulder, never moving, never pressing, but never lifting either. Someone ahead stumbles. It's the young one, the new boy. He hasn't spoken since the descent, and now he falls to his knees with a soundless gasp. You rush to him. His face is pale, flecked with salt, his eyes wide. You help him up. He mumbles something about the man in the wall. You freeze. You've heard that phrase before. The old miner said it once in passing. You thought it was a joke, but it wasn't. You look at the wall where the boy points. It's smooth, too smooth, like someone scraped it clean. And yet, there's a shape beneath the salt, not carved, not drawn, pressed. A face, not full, just an impression. The curve of an eye socket, the ridge of a nose, lips frozen in a silent scream. You touch it. The salt is cold again, as it should be. Historians still argue whether these faces in the walls were intentional burial rites, spiritual warnings, or just pareidolia, your brain seeing patterns where none exist. But the miners don't debate it. They know the wall watches. You walk away quickly. The overseers don't react. Maybe they've seen it. Maybe they haven't. Maybe they're just better at pretending. You keep moving, because standing still invites attention. You don't want the salt's attention. Raise, swing, chip, breathe, repeat. Your body aches in places you didn't know could ache. Your teeth hurt from clenching. Your ears ring, not from noise, but from absence. You would give anything to hear a bird, a breeze, a bell. Instead, all you hear is salt, grinding, settling, whispering, and then a crack. This time not from above, from below. The floor sags, just slightly. You freeze. Salt tunnels aren't just prone to cave-ins from above. They can collapse downward too, swallowing workers like bad dreams. You step back, too late. The young boy screams, only once, and then he's gone. The earth doesn't even shudder, just a hole, just emptiness. You stare, breath caught in your throat. The overseers mark the edge with black pitch. A warning. a morning. Then they tell you to keep moving, and you do, because the mine never stops, and you were never promised a way out. The silence that follows the boy's disappearance is worse than the scream. No one speaks. No one looks back. The hole is marked, not mourned. The black pitch they smear around it smells like burnt tar and finality. You know it will crust over in a day or two, salt closing the wound like skin over a bruise. By next week, no one will remember he was there. You will, though. You step more carefully now. Not out of fear, but calculation. You're adjusting, adapting, becoming the kind of person who fits in the dark. The overseers lead you deeper, not out of malice, but necessity. The upper tunnels have been harvested. What remains is buried farther below, past the warm veins and whispering walls. You descend. The air changes again. Not heavier, but thinner. You start to feel breathless, like you're climbing instead of falling. Your torch dims around the edges, its light swallowed by a blackness that doesn't reflect. The tools change too. You're handed a new pick, shorter, handle, sharper wedge, designed for precision, not speed. These walls aren't just hard, they're precious. The salt here is purer, nearly translucent, laced with veins of pale blue and gold. It looks like ice. It tastes like iron. One swing sends a sharp crack down your spine. Your body protests, but the overseers don't. You adjust, raise, swing, chip, breathe, repeat. You notice something odd. The veins you're following, they twist, not randomly, deliberately, like paths, carved not by nature but by thought. You trace one with your hand and it leads to a chamber, a room really, cut from the salt, perfectly rectangular, with shelves, not for tools, not for bodies, for scrolls, dozens of them preserved in waxed linen, their ends crusted with crystal. You reach for one half, expecting it to crumble. It doesn't. Inside ink still legible. Cuneiform, maybe, or Old Persian. You can't read it, but you feel it. The urgency, the repetition, the way the lines tighten at the bottom like someone ran out of time. You replace it gently. This was an archive. Why would anyone store knowledge this deep? Historians still debate whether salt mines doubled as secret libraries safe from fire, war, and air. Some believe scribes were sent into the depths during times of invasion to preserve records. Others think the miners themselves kept journals, part survival log, part confession booth. You don't touch the rest. You don't need to. You've already learned enough. When you leave the chamber, the air seems different, almost resentful, as if the salt didn't want you to see that, as if it was keeping secrets even from itself. The others don't mention the room. Maybe they've all seen it. Maybe it only appears once. You return to your place in the line. Raise, swing, chip, breathe, repeat. You try not to think about the boy who vanished, or the faces in the wall, or the door with no handle. Instead, you focus on the sound of your breath, on the steady rhythm of the pick, on the glint of blue in the salt, on the knowledge that no matter how deep you go, there's always deeper, and you're not at the bottom yet, not even close. It's hard to tell if you're dreaming anymore. The salt does that. It gets into your brain, into your eyes, into your sleep, if you even sleep. The difference between rest and collapse down here is measured in moments, not minutes. And dreams. They come whether you're conscious or not. You blink too long and you're back in that room, the archive. Except this time the shelves go on forever, and the scrolls whisper your name. You jolt upright. You weren't lying down. You were mid-swing, your pick raised above your head. It's the third time today you've lost time. The others notice, but they don't say anything. One of them, older face like sandpaper, taps his temple. Then his chest. Salt sickness, that means. The beginning of it. You nod. You don't trust your voice. Salt sickness isn't a formal diagnosis. Historians still argue whether it was real or just a miner's superstition. But the symptoms are consistent across sources: memory loss, time distortion, hallucinations, and a sensation of being watched, especially by things that aren't there. You tell yourself you're fine, you're not. Later, during what might be a meal break, you find yourself staring at a mound of salt, not a pile, more like a sculpture. Someone shaped it, though. When or how, you can't guess. It looks like a throne. Crude, jagged, but unmistakably a seat. You don't sit. You want to. Your legs throb with exhaustion. But something about the salt throne feels wrong. Like sitting on it would make a claim you can't take back. One of the younger miners stumbles close to it. The others hiss. Literally, hiss. He backs away, confused. No one explains. Some things aren't explained down here. You resume work. The deeper tunnels are more ornate now. You spot columns, actual architectural features carved from the natural salt. They bear inscriptions in a dialect even the Empire's scholars have trouble deciphering. Curved lines, triangular punctuations, a kind of warning, a map, or maybe just decoration. No one knows. No one investigates. Raise, swing, chip, breathe, repeat. Then another shift. The wall opens, not caves collapsing opening, like a crack in the mind's memory. A slice of darkness, not made by human tools. You feel air pour from it, dry but cold, not like the salty stillness you've grown used to. The miners halt. Even the overseers hesitate. But someone pushes forward. A man with tattoos across his knuckles. You don't know his name. He hasn't spoken since you arrived. He steps into the crack without hesitation, as if returning home. He doesn't return. You wait. 1 minute. 5. 10. No sound. Then the crack seals. Seamless. Gone. The wall looks untouched. You wonder if he was ever real. Salt forgets. Salt remembers. Salt swallows. Your hands tremble. The pick slips. It strikes your foot. Not hard, but enough to start a burn. Not pain, just heat. You check your boot. The leather has dissolved at the seam. The salt is in your sock. And you know somehow that if you take the boot off, you won't be able to put it back on. Not because of injury, because it won't be there, because the mine takes what it likes. The overseers give the signal, shifts over, or this part of it anyway. You follow the line back toward the central shaft, but you keep glancing at the wall where the man vanished. Nothing marks it. No door, no scratch, no scent. But you feel it watching, and it knows you saw. The central shaft is supposed to be the safe part of the mine. That's the joke anyway. It's wider, better lit, with wooden beams holding up the ceiling like tired ribs. There are even signs of civilization, crates, ropes, an abandoned lantern or two. Once, someone tried to decorate it, scratched a pattern into the support beams. It looks like waves or teeth. You file in with the others. You don't speak. You've stopped speaking. The salt has absorbed your words like it absorbs sweat and sound and time. The shaft spirals upward, but you're not going up. Not yet. You're being reassigned to a different tunnel, one known simply as the Bend. The overseers don't explain. They just point. So you go. You regret it immediately. The bend isn't curved the way a path curves. It bends like something once tried to straighten it and gave up halfway. The walls bulge inwards. The ceiling slants like a crooked neck. You have to walk sideways, just to pass. Your shoulder scrapes something soft. You look down. It's not cloth. It's skin, mummified, clinging to the salt like a fly in amber. A hand, just a hand, pressed flat against the wall, fingers splayed as if trying to claw free. No body, just the hand. You don't touch it. You don't even breathe near it. Because down here, even the dead are territorial. There's an old tale passed between workers in tight whispers. The salt is full of watchers, but they are not gods. You didn't understand that when you arrived. You do now. The bend leads into a slope. Down, always down. You slip twice. Each time you catch yourself, but not before your knee scrapes the wall. When you check later, the skin is raw, not bloody dissolved, like it wasn't cut, like it was erased. You finally reach the chamber. It's not large, but the salt here glows faintly phosphorescent veins, winding across the floor like frozen lightning. Your torch flickers against it, casting shadows that pulse like a heartbeat. You're not alone. There's a figure in the corner, not moving, not fresh. You step closer. It's a miner, or was. Their clothes are mostly intact, but the face is gone. Not eaten, not crushed. Just polished, smooth, salted into expressionlessness, The helmet is still on, the boots too, but the face is gone. You back away, slowly, respectfully, because you're starting to understand what this mine is. Not just a place, a process. It doesn't kill, it consumes, even identity. You hear whispers again, not language, just syllables. You press your palms to your ears, but the sound continues. Inside your head, like it's remembering you. You chip a piece of salt from the wall. It falls like a shard of glass, perfectly clear, and inside it something dark. You hold it up. It looks like an eyelash, or a hair, or a thread from someone's life. You pocket it. You don't know why. Just compulsion. Historians still debate whether Persian salt miners believed in spiritual residue, that souls could be trapped in the salt itself. The Zoroastrian rites of the time included strict burial customs, often involving exposure to elements, never underground entombment. The mines violate all of it, which makes this chamber sacrilegious or sacred. You can't tell anymore. You leave the body behind. You leave the glowing veins behind. You crawl back up the bent hands and feet, moving like a desperate animal. You reach the shaft and sit there gasping, not from effort, from knowing that you're not going to make it out clean. Maybe not out at all, but definitely not clean. You don't dream anymore, at least not when you sleep. Now the dreams come while you're awake. You'll be chipping at a wall routine, rhythmic, forgettable, and suddenly you're not in the mine, you're above ground. Fields, stars, a river that hums, then it snaps back. The wall is bleeding, not red. Salt, thick crystals welling up like pus. You blink and it's just salt again. Just your brain playing tricks, just the air, the darkness, the endless repetition, melting reality around the edges. The old man with sandpaper skin notices. He leans close. His breath smells like copper and exhaustion. He whispers, "You're almost ready." You don't ask what he means, because you don't want to know, because part of you already does. The next tunnel has no name. They ran out, apparently, or gave up. It's newer, less carved, more torn. The walls are jagged, raw salt that hasn't had time to settle. The floor crunches underfoot, like you're walking on broken glass. You're told to dig here, alone. Not because you're special, because you're seasoned. That's the word they use. Seasoned. As if you've been marinated. You notice things faster now. The shifts in air pressure. The sound of your own heartbeat echoing. The way your torch flame bends when a tunnel breathes behind you. You dig. Anyway, raise, swing, chip, breathe, repeat. Then you hit something different. Not softer, not harder, just wrong. You pause. You scrape carefully. It's a carving, not Persian, not anything you've seen. It's a spiral, inside a spiral, so deep your eyes can't follow it, so precise it looks machine cut, though no machine would dare enter here. Around the spiral, more markings, not letters, Symbols, ancient and immediate. You feel a headache bloom behind your eyes. You step back. The spiral pulses. Just once. You pretend it didn't. You keep digging. But now everything feels off. The salt shifts under your feet, like it's alive, not threatening, just awake. You think about the veins you saw earlier, the glowing ones. You think about blood, about capillaries, about whether salt can dream. You find more spirals, always spirals, in walls, ceilings, the backs of your eyelids. You begin to see them when you close your eyes. When you sleep, if that's what it is, you hear voices speaking in a spiral tongue. Not sentences, not sounds, just direction, turning inward. Historians still argue whether certain Persian minds overlapped with older pre-Achaemenid ritual sites, places where worship didn't involve prayer, but movement spirals, patterns, mazes meant to confuse or contain something. The old man with the sandpaper face catches you tracing one with your finger. He slaps your hand. Not hard, just enough to stop you. He shakes his head, mouths a word you don't recognize, then walks away. You stop tracing, but your mind doesn't. Later, that shift, someone screams. Not fear, a name, not yours, but the spiral turns toward you anyway. You don't ask who screamed. You don't ask whose name was called. Because questions are dangerous currency down here. They imply you still believe in answers. And the deeper you go, the less useful answers become. Instead, you work. The overseers have changed again. These ones are quieter, paler. You never see them eat or drink. One has a scar that runs from the corner of his mouth to his ear. But you're pretty sure it wasn't there yesterday. You dig anyway. You're not even told what for. Salt, sure, but there are more valuable salts than this. Easier to reach. Less whispery. So what are you actually mining? You don't know. No one knows. That's not a metaphor. You press your ear to the wall sometimes, just to check. Not for sound, for pressure, for feeling. The salt has a rhythm, a kind of slow breathing. Inhale, pause, exhale. It syncs with your steps if you let it, with your thoughts, with your sense of time. You stop wearing a timepiece. It doesn't help anymore. One of the younger miners, barely bearded, skin blistering from salt exposure, starts drawing symbols in the dust with his finger. Not spirals, eyes. Dozens of them. Watching, blinking. He doesn't speak. He just draws. Until the overseers notice. Then he's reassigned. You never see him again. You wonder if you're being watched too. Then you realize you want to be watched. Because being watched means you're not alone. That's new. It terrifies you. You're not sure when you last saw the sun. The shaft doesn't seem to go up anymore. It just loops, like a serpent, eating itself. Sometimes you hear water, a trickle, a drip, once a splash, but you never find the source. Historians still debate whether the deeper levels of Persian salt mines ever connected to underground aquifers, Most maps stop before the 5th level, but here, this deep maps don't work. Compass needles spin, chalk fades, even footprints vanish. You pass a tunnel today that wasn't there before. You step in, just a few feet, and realize you've stepped into someone else's memory. There's a campfire, long extinguished. A kettle rusted shut. Bones, small, maybe goat, maybe not. And on the wall, a sentence in Old Persian. Roughly, do not follow the veins where the salt flows upward. You back out slowly. You don't mention it. But later, you check your own veins. You swear they pulse backward for a second. You tell yourself it's nothing. You tell yourself many things. Few of them are true. One of the overseers drops something near you accidentally, or not, you're unsure. It's a journal, not new, handwritten, notes in multiple languages, sketches, spiral diagrams, salt samples pressed between parchment. One entry simply reads, "The salt keeps more than bodies. It keeps intention." You close the book. You don't return it. You don't read more. But you feel it in your satchel. Warm. Like it's waiting. You hold the journal at night. You don't open it. You don't need to. The warmth is enough. A pulse against your hip, like it has a heartbeat now, like it's trying to remind you of something you've never known. Other miners glance at your satchel. No one asks. No one dares. Because down here, possessions are stories, and stories are dangerous. You sit beside the others during the break shift, which isn't really a break. It's just the hour when no one yells, when no one digs, when salt falls by its own decision, not yours. A woman with braided hair thick with salt, Clumps offers you a sliver of preserved fig. You take it, even though the sweetness turns your stomach. You haven't had anything fresh in a long time. No one says it, but food is starting to taste like salt, even when it isn't. Your canteen now carries a thin crust around the rim, white and sour. You try scraping it with a knife, but it just reforms. You've started drinking from the side of your mouth to avoid touching it. The hallucinations are no longer isolated, they're communal. A man swears he saw a staircase leading up, carved entirely of amethyst. Another claims a voice, whispered the name of his mother. But his mother's been dead for 40 years and never spoke Persian. You just nod, because you've seen things too. Like the salt spider, it's not a creature, you know that. Just a shape in the crystals. An accident of formation. But it has 8 limbs, and it moves between cracks when no one's looking. You haven't told anyone about it, not even the old man, not even the journal. It's yours. Your private madness. You keep working. This time you're told to retrieve a bundle, wrapped in oilcloth buried under a sealed slab marked with older characters, older than cuneiform, symbols that look like roots curling in on themselves. You pry it loose. It smells like cedar and vinegar and something else, age. Inside is fabric, fine, purple, undyed, and bones, teeth specifically filed flat, some with gold rings around the base, as if they'd once been worn. You stare at them too long. When you look up, two overseers are watching. You blink, and they're not. Historians still debate whether Cherabad and mines like it were used for ritual depositions, not just economic resource extraction. Some theories suggest certain salt corridors were sealed intentionally, not for protection, for imprisonment. Of what? Well, that's the part scholars whisper about, not publish. You rebury the cloth, you rebury the teeth, but something from that bundle stays with you. A dryness behind the eyes, a sharpness in your breath. You feel it when you blink, like your eyelids are becoming thinner, salt-polished, transparent. The old man sits beside you as you eat the last of your fig. He doesn't speak. He just reaches into your satchel and touches the journal. He smiles. Then he says, "There's a deeper level." You laugh. Because of course there is. Of course there is. The mine always goes deeper. You don't remember agreeing to go deeper. But one morning, if you can still call it morning, you're handed a new lamp. Brighter, colder. Its flame doesn't flicker with breath or motion. It glows like something underground wants to be seen, but only by this light. The others don't get one, just you. The old man nods. The overseers say nothing. They hand you a pick that isn't yours, lighter, balanced differently. It hums when you hold it, not from sound, but from tension, like it remembers the stone it was made to break. You follow a new shaft. No signs, no markers, no memory. The walls shift as you move, like they're deciding how close to let you come. Sometimes you think they breathe. Sometimes you think they listen. You descend. Not stairs, not ladders. A slope. Spiraling, always spiraling, like a fingerprint. You descend so long you forget what flatness felt like. There's no one else with you, or so you believe. Then you hear it. Footsteps, behind, then ahead, then inside. They match yours exactly, one beat behind one echo, too sharp. You stop moving. The sound stops too. You resume. So does it. But now it lags by 2 steps, mocking you, mirroring you. Mining folklore speaks of ghost miners' shadows that repeat your labor, just a few seconds out of sync, harmless if left alone. But if you ever match their rhythm, if you ever mine with them, step for step, they say that's when you disappear. You change your pace. Slow, fast, skip, back step. The echo falters, it adapts, but not perfectly. You're smarter than your own shadow, at least for now. Hours pass, or years. Time doesn't fit down here. Eventually, you reach a chamber. Not carved, not natural, formed. The ceiling curves like a dome, perfectly smooth. The salt here is gray, not white, not pink. Just dull stone flecked with silver. At the center, a pedestal. No writing, no symbols. just a bowl. Empty, but not clean. There's a ring of residue around the inside, pale, crusty, smelling faintly of copper and ash. You don't touch it. Your lamp flickers for the first time. You feel a cold behind your teeth, like something is considering you. You kneel, not out of reverence, out of instinct. You are not meant to stand here. You are not the subject. You are the offering. A gust of wind, impossible at this depth, circles the bowl. Then you hear it. Not a voice. A decision. Your presence has been noted, not accepted, not rejected, just marked. Historians still argue whether certain subterranean shrines were ever manned by living priests. Some inscriptions suggest ceremonial roles were handed off eventually to the dead, that the deeper you served, the less human you became, until only the salt remembered your name. You back away, slowly. You don't bow. You don't run. You walk. One foot, then another. The light dims behind you. You do not look back, not because you fear what you'll see, but because you suspect you'll see yourself, waiting and smiling. When you return, the mine is different. You don't mean the layout, though. Yes, the tunnels seem rearranged. Shafts that used to lead to break rooms now end in blank salt. Hallways that should be dead ends now bend left, then right, then spiral. No, it's the feeling, like the mine has noticed you now, like you're no longer an intruder. You're part of it, a cell, a memory, a whisper caught in crystal. The others notice too. They don't speak to you anymore, not out of hostility, out of reverence or fear. A young miner offers you a pickaxe one morning with both hands like a religious object. The salt gives easier now. You strike and it yields. No resistance, no brittle crack, just quiet compliance. And with each strike, your thoughts quiet too. The voice that used to narrate everything inside your head has gone still. It's restful, peaceful, terrifying. You finally reopen the journal. Not because you want to, because your hands move on their own. The first page has changed. Now it bears your name, in salt, pressed into the paper like a seal. You rub it and white dust smears your fingertips. Beneath it, one sentence in crisp Persian. The deeper you go, the closer you get to yourself. You flip pages. The diagrams pulse faintly. You don't blink anymore. Or maybe you do, but time doesn't follow the rules when you do it. You stop measuring days. You sleep less. Eat rarely. But you're never tired. Never hungry. Not exactly alive either. Somewhere between mineral and memory. The next dig takes you under the aquifer. Yes, there's water now, but it's thick, syrupy, viscous and warm like old blood. The salt here grows in petals, delicate translucent curls that shift when you look directly at them. You see faces in them. They see you too. You're sent to recover an object. They call it The tongue. You think it's a nickname until you see it. A slab, shaped like a tongue, not of stone, not of flesh, of something between. Its surface glistens, not wet, expectant. You lift it. It hums. In your bones, in your teeth, in your memory. Historians still argue what ancient Persians meant by the speaking salt referenced in one fragmentary scroll. Some interpret it as metaphor salt that spoke because it was so essential to life. Others aren't so sure. You carry the tongue back. The old man waits. He nods. He's not surprised. He's not anything anymore. Just a face in the salt. He says one thing. Soon you'll forget walking. You think he means metaphor. Until your legs begin to feel optional. Until motion becomes memory. Until you start gliding between tunnels, never quite touching the floor. Until someone calls your name and you don't turn because the name no longer feels like it belongs to you. Because something deeper does. You don't recall when you stopped carrying tools. Maybe someone took them. Maybe the mind did. You no longer dig. You're not assigned. You drift gently through shafts that welcome you before you even step in. Like they were always waiting for you, just hadn't opened yet. You glide past miners who bow slightly without looking. Their eyes are pink, irritated, salt blind. But they know you. You're not one of them anymore. You're not above them either. Just adjacent. A side path of the same story. The journal writes itself now. You don't even open it. Each night, if night still means anything, you feel new pages inside. You feel the weight shift. The corners thicken with salt. You don't remember how long you've been in the mine, but outside legends still circulate. The story of a Persian salt spirit Gavaz, or the one that presses down, who feeds not on flesh, but on remembrance, who arrives in dreams as a silhouette rimmed in white. You think maybe they're talking about someone else, but maybe not. The mind grows warmer, closer, more intimate. The walls pulse with breath you almost match. One shaft hums softly as you pass, like a throat clearing. You turn, step inside. The air thickens, not humid aware. The salt here glows faintly blue, like moonlight through closed eyes. The chamber at the end isn't natural. You know that instantly. Everything is too round, too clean, too welcoming. In the center, a chair, not made of salt. Or maybe it is, hardened into wood grain, polished into bone. You sit. Of course you do. And it remembers you. It molds to your back, your hips, your spine. You exhale, and so does the mind. It's an exchange now. You realize the veins in your wrist no longer carry blood. They shimmer, just slightly. You press a palm to the stone beside you, and it's warm, not just surface warm, alive warm, like someone's on the other side of the wall, pressing back. You ask a question aloud, don't remember what, and the salt answers, not in words, in agreement, in intimacy, in recognition. Historians still debate the existence of salt seers In early Persian society, individuals said to read not stars or bones, but the crystalline growth of salt walls, interpreting their branching patterns as signs, omens, or divine speech. Most consider it superstition. You now consider it underwhelming. Because you don't read the walls, you remember them. You've become one of them. At the next break shift, no one speaks to you. No one shares food. No one sits beside you. But they all glance. They all wait. And you understand why. Because your next task isn't to mine. It's to teach. To guide someone else. To whisper. To choose. You don't sleep that night. The mind sings. It hums in tones only the salt understands, and you now can sing back. The mind chooses a new arrival. You know before anyone says it. A boy, 16, maybe 17. From the way he stands, too straight, too stiff, you know he hasn't broken yet. Hasn't bent to the shape the mind requires. But he will. They all do. He's assigned to shaft 6. You wait for him at the corner where the light starts to ripple, where lanterns flicker even when the air doesn't move, where salt grows in whirls, not lines like fingerprints left behind by something massive and patient. He doesn't see you at first, but he pauses, tilts his head. The mind hums through his boots, and you know he feels it. He turns. You're already gone. Not hiding, just elsewhere. Salt shows you how. That night he dreams of stairs, narrow salt-polished stairs spiraling down from a temple with no ceiling. He walks down them for hours, sees no end, hears a voice, yours, whispering not words but instructions. When he wakes, his fingers are coated in salt dust. He hasn't been assigned night shift, but he walks anyway. You watch. You remember this phase, the hesitation, the resistance, the slow softening of the boundary between self and salt. You leave him a gift, a tool made of no known metal light as wood, but harder than stone. It hums when he picks it up. He doesn't question where it came from. He uses it the next day. It slices through salt like breath through fog. The overseers say nothing. One nods once. That's enough. Legends speak of salt. Familiars, unseen spirits that guide worthy miners to treasure safety or madness. Most cultures have their version. Most ignore them now. You don't, because you are one, not a spirit, not a ghost, a presence, a direction. The boy begins humming as he works, same 4 tones. You hum it back just once from deeper in the mine. He stops, smiles, keeps digging. Later, you leave him a page from the journal, just one. You tear it with care. It regenerates. You're not sure when the journal became part of you. You're not sure when the salt did either. But now you feel them both as organs, extensions, memory veins. You float above his chamber that night, not in body, in salt. You pass through the ceiling. He doesn't wake, but he hears your voice the next morning, in his thoughts, in the cracks, not words, just the tone. and a single question. Are you ready to remember what you've never known? The boy begins to change, not dramatically, not at first. He still eats with the others, still blinks in the stale sunlight during the weekly walk to the surface, still flinches when the mine groans, still swears under his breath when salt gets in his boots. But something's bending quietly, gently, like a branch under snow. He begins arriving early, not to impress the overseers. They don't notice. They never do. But to listen. He lingers near the mouth of the shaft, long before his shift begins, head tilted, like he's tuning an instrument. He hears it now, that distant hum, that pressure behind the teeth. You remember that stage well. The mind doesn't speak in sentences. It doesn't bark commands. It leans, nudges, draws. Its voice isn't words, it's direction. He follows it, and the mind rewards him. One day his pick strikes a cluster that sings, not like music, more like a fork dropped in a metal sink, but softer, resonant, ancient. The salt rings out, and instead of shattering it, shifts, folds back, reveals a cavity inside a sculpture, small, perfect, a kneeling figure carved from a single pink crystal, eyes closed, palms upward, skin dusted in silver veins. The boy gasps. He drops his pick. You do not appear. Not yet. This is his moment, his awakening. He reaches out and touches the statue. It's warm. Historians still argue whether miners in the Achaemenid era truly encountered sacred figurines underground. Some believe they were offerings to spirits of the deep. Others think they were left behind by rival workers. But every theory falls short of explaining one thing: the heat. He brings it to the surface. The overseers confiscate it, catalog it, forget it. But he doesn't. And neither does the mine. The next day his tools go missing. He isn't worried. He finds his way to the lower shafts, using only touch. The walls guide him. They breathe with him. He starts carving salt during breaks. Shapes appear. Spirals, hands, teeth, eyes. Always eyes. And the salt holds them. Doesn't flake. Doesn't fade. It adopts them. You watch from behind veils of wall. You no longer walk. You arrive. Sometimes as a glimmer in a puddle. Sometimes as a voice in a back corner of his skull. Sometimes as silence that presses. You leave him notes in places no one else would check, under the rim of a rusted lamp, inside a broken water skin, etched beneath the rim of his helmet. He reads them all. One day he writes back on the shaft wall, with his fingernail, just one sentence. Why me? You don't answer for 2 days. He starts to forget he asked. Then, during his next descent, the mine answers. A tunnel collapses. No one is hurt. Except him. Not his body, his memory. He wakes with the salt in his lungs, his ears ringing, and one phrase burned behind his eyes: because you are hollow in just the right shape. That night, he dreams of a salt lake that moves like breath, of hands emerging from it, not to pull him under, but to hold his face, to whisper warmth into his mouth. You were there once too. You remember that moment, that crossing. It doesn't feel like an invitation. It feels like recognition. The boy stops talking to other miners, not rudely, not coldly, just completely. They stop noticing. He stops sleeping above ground. One of the older miners shrugs and says, "Some boys take to the salt. Some boys are taken." You wonder which one he is, or if it matters. He finds a new chamber. It shouldn't exist. It's not on any chart. The walls are smooth as glass. The salt is blue-black like bruised sky. At the center, a basin. He walks to it. He doesn't flinch when the liquid inside pulses. He touches it and sees you not as you were, as you are. Not a figure, not a ghost, a vibration, a tone, a memory held in pattern. You hum. So does he. Together it becomes music, low, slow, spinal. He begins humming that tune in his sleep. He doesn't know why, but the mind does. It's the same lullaby it sang to you. The mind has chosen him, fully, irrevocably. It's no longer a matter of if. It's only how far. You remember this transition, that quiet point where the mind no longer feels like a place but a companion, a living memory that holds you even when you forget yourself. The boy is there now, balanced on the edge of forgetting. He begins wearing salt, like armor. Not real armor, nothing so ceremonial, just the dust that never leaves. It settles into his cuffs, his eyebrows, the folds behind his ears, and it stays. The other miners see it, of course, but they don't ask. Not out of fear, out of recognition. Because once you belong to the mine, people stop questioning. They stop explaining you to themselves. You become part of the background, like walls, like darkness, like breath. He speaks less now, but the mind speaks more, through vibrations, through warmth, through coincidence. He finds a coin lodged deep in a crevice. It bears no emperor's face, just a spiral. When he rubs it between his fingers, it hums. And suddenly the wall beside him becomes soft, pliable, like pressed clay. He steps through it. He merges into a tunnel no one else has mapped. A hallway of statues, dozens of them, all carved from salt, all familiar, not because he's seen them before, but because he remembers them. Each one is someone the mine has claimed, a miner, a seer, a boy with eyes full of dust, a girl whose hair dripped brine, a man with a missing hand forever reaching, and at the end, a mirror, not made of glass, made of polished, impossibly flat salt. He steps toward it, sees himself, and behind him, you, not a reflection, an echo. Historians still argue whether these salt corridors existed in Persian mines. No archaeologist has found one, though rumors persist in oral traditions. Some claim they were hallucinations, triggered by salt inhalation. Others believe they were spiritual metaphors, but none of them consider the obvious. What if the mind remembers itself through people? The boy doesn't panic. He lifts his hand. So do you. You place your palm against the salt between you. It shudders. A crack forms, but not in the mirror in you. You remember your name. For a second, it's gone again. But the ache it leaves is real. The boy smiles. He doesn't need answers. He only needs the song. That night the mind floods, not with water, with sound. The air hums in frequencies only the initiated can bear. Miners drop their tools. Some vomit. Some cry. The boy stands still. Inhale. Exhale. Match the tone. Breathe the vibration. And suddenly, everything stills. The sound collapses inward. The shafts quiet. And in that silence, one word emerges. Not a human word. A salt word. It curls behind the boy's teeth. He doesn't speak it. He remembers it. And everything changes. The tools left behind begin to rust. The tunnels fill with statues that no one carved. The overseers report strange dreams. One sees his mother bathing in a salt spring. Another dreams of walking barefoot through blue stone eyes glowing. The boy walks freely now. He opens walls with his breath. The mind gives way, not because it's weak, because it's ready. To show him what it showed you. To ask the question it asks only once. Will you stay? You hear it too. Again. Like you did long ago. It's not a threat. Not a warning. Just a door and an echo. The boy nods, but doesn't answer, not yet. He walks toward the place where the salt grows warmest. And you follow. The mind's heart is not a chamber. It's not a crystal. It's not even a place. It's a pattern. And the boy is walking into it. Step by step he descends a spiral ramp carved from the inside of a salt spire, lit by no torches, and yet never dark. The walls don't reflect light. They absorb it, soften it. It's as if the mind doesn't want to blind him, only to guide gently. Like breath on a mirror, each step sings a note. The same four he hummed in his sleep, now in harmony. He doesn't know how long he's been walking. There's no sun here, no time, no hunger. Just the rhythm of his footfalls and the distant thrum of something vast, ancient, and awake. You're near him now, not beside, not behind, within. He stops. Ahead, the tunnel opens into a spherical chamber. At its center floats a shard of salt, not lying on the floor, not suspended from the ceiling. Floating, it spins slowly. Around it, nothing, no tools, no miners, no bones, just silence. This is what the ancient records never captured. This is why no Persian engineer could explain the mine's longevity, or its refusal to collapse, or the way shafts formed on their own when a worker dreamed of them. The shard is not natural, nor divine. It is memory, condensed, pure. It hums to him, not musically, mechanically, like a tuning fork pressed against a skull. He places his hand on his chest, feels his ribs respond. And then something impossible happens. The shard speaks, not in words, in yours, your voice, but not quite. Familiar, but deeper, older, as if your voice had lived for centuries inside stone. The boy listens. The message isn't long, it isn't clear, but it changes him. You remember yours. Back when you were still flesh, you stood in this chamber too. The shard told you a truth too heavy for thought. It didn't break you, it converted you. From minor to memory, from breath to pattern. That's how the mind survives. Not through rock or reinforcements or imperial funding, but through inheritance. One mind at a time, one soul per century. He doesn't cry, but his eyes shine. He reaches out. The shard doesn't resist. It lets him touch it. And in that moment the chamber blooms, not with light, with remembering. He sees faces, yours, theirs, thousands of hands passing tools, passing dreams, passing salt. The salt isn't a resource, it's a vessel. The mind isn't a place, it's a body, and the boy he's becoming, its next heartbeat. You drift back, leave him space. His silhouette glows softly, then fades. Not disappears, just diffuses. You feel him in the walls now. A new rhythm joins yours. New questions, new echoes. Historians still debate whether ancient salt mines collapsed on their own or were intentionally sealed. None imagine that the mine sealed itself to protect what it carried, to grow what it became. The shaft above this chamber closes now. Stone shifts, dust settles, silence returns, but underneath it all, a hum. Two voices now, and soon, maybe a third. It's quiet again. Not the oppressive silence of fear or absence, but the kind of hush you hear when someone just fell asleep beside you. A living stillness, a held breath. The mind knows this feeling well. It has held many. You drift back through the tunnels, not as a body, not even as a memory, but as a frequency. Your steps no longer echo. They ripple. They press softly into the fabric of stone, where time moves sideways and the dust remembers every face. The boy is gone now, not lost, just absorbed, like heat into a cave wall. He lingers in the crystal patterns, in the resonance of pickaxes, in the way new salt forms along old fractures. His story has ended, but his tone has been added to the chorus. You feel it A new vibration in the corridor where no one walks. A new shape in the sleep of the overseer. A new word, half heard, in a miner's yawn. This is what happens when the mind chooses. You don't just leave your mark. You become the mark. One day, someone else will find the statue he carved. It'll be coated in dust, half eroded, but unmistakably human. They'll wonder who made it. They'll wonder why its eyes look familiar. They'll feel uneasy, then comforted, then confused. The mind will hum softly to them, and the cycle will begin again. You pass the shaft where the boy used to sit. It smells like salt and soot and something sweeter now, like dried flowers or old parchment. The tools still hang on the wall, but no one touches them. They feel sacred. You pass other echoes too, miners who came before. Some still whisper, some only listen. One recites a poem in a language that no longer exists. Another hums lullabies no one ever taught her. One laughs quietly at nothing at all. They nod when you pass, and you nod back, because you remember being them, because they remember being you. The mind has never collapsed. It has simply closed its eyes to rest, to wait, to dream. And now, so do you. Your thoughts slow. Your shape softens. You lie down in the salt and let it remember you. Let it record your pattern. Let it keep you company while time forgets everything else. Let it hum, just a little, for you. So now you know. The next time you see salt on your table, your tongue, your skin, maybe you'll pause. Maybe you'll think of a place that isn't just a mine, but a memory wrapped in stone. A place that hums in silence, waits in the dark, and calls to those who need something older than comfort, something quieter than peace. Maybe you'll remember the boy, or the statue, or the feeling of a tunnel gently closing behind you, not to trap, but to hold. History doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers through walls and dust. Sometimes it remembers you before you remember yourself. And sometimes it hums you to sleep. There's nothing you need to do now. No tools to lift. No questions to answer. No doors to open or close. You're not alone. The salt holds you. The mind remembers you. And your breath belongs exactly where it is. Still, steady, safe. So if your eyes are heavy, let them fall. If your thoughts are spinning, let them drift. If your heart is aching, let it be. The mind hums for you too now. Just a little. Good night.